This is episode 4 in my Summer Headspace series. This is a chance to revisit episodes from the previous school year during the summer months when you may have a little extra time. You can look for these episodes throughout the summer with new podcast episodes beginning on August 22nd. In these Summer Headspace episodes, I revisit by theme, and you'll find the links to listen to these episodes right in the show notes. Today, we look back at episode 27, where Ben Tinsley talked with me about diversifying the world language curriculum, and episode 33, where Cécile Lenné spoke with me about integrating can-do statements with social justice standards. These two episodes work really well together and give lots of guidance as we bring topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion to our language classrooms. So let's jump in. Are you a language teacher looking for some reassurance that what you're doing in the classroom is on the right track? Or maybe you're looking for some ways to teach even more effectively. If you're one or the other or somewhere in between, you've landed in the right place. This is the World Language Classroom Podcast with your host, me, Joshua Cabral. You're about to get tips, tools, and resources so that your students continue to rise in proficiency and communicate with confidence. Let's jump in. Vamos, allons-y. Hello, my friends. Bonjour, mes amis. Hola, mis amigos. Welcome to the World Language Classroom Podcast. I am Joshua Cabral, and thank you, as always, for being here, taking the time out of your week to listen to what's going on in teachers' classrooms, to hear about some research, some ideas, and different topics that'll help you along your teaching journey. It's what makes you an incredible educator, particularly if you're listening to this Summer Headspace episode during your summer vacation. That's really respectful. So props to you for doing that. Take a second and make sure that you are liking or subscribing on whatever app that you're listening to this podcast on so you can get new episodes every Monday when they come out. And it also helps you if you leave a little review as well, because that helps other language teachers to see it and gets the word out there about the podcast. I always really appreciate that. So let's jump into this Summer Headspace revisit episode. So the first episode we're going to look back at is episode 27, and this is with Ben Tinsley, and he begins by telling us about his personal experience with language learning and how he often saw that a single, assumed, or expected, and often Eurocentric white voice was what he saw as a black child growing up and learning French. And so he spoke about how this motivated him to make black and brown voices and faces central to his curriculum so that that cycle is interrupted. So he goes on to really speak in depth about how we can diversify our world language curriculums. He's a French teacher in Pennsylvania, and so he speaks specifically about Francophone cultures, but he really offers a lot of insight about how we can diversify our cultures in our world language classrooms in general. Ben elaborates on how important it is that we as language teachers include this essential part in our curriculum rather than a one-off discussion. You know, this whole idea of bringing diverse faces and voices and experiences into our curriculum. I then asked Ben about how we can make sure that our students understand the full range of voices and ethnicities and lived experience of those in the cultures that we introduce in the classroom. And he gives concrete and actionable suggestions. And he also tells us where we can find resources and how to make them an organic part of our curriculum. So to complement that episode with Ben Tinsley, you can take a listen to episode 33 with Cécile Lenné, where she talked about integrating can-do statements with social justice standards. So I continue this conversation about diversity and equity in this conversation with Cécile that began in that conversation with Ben. Cécile really opens up the discussion and talks about the learning for justice, social justice standards, and she gives a clear description of these social justice standards and how they're designed. And then she goes on to discuss how we can use these social justice standards along with actful can-do statements. So they're not sort of separate where you're doing social justice topics and you're doing linguistic topics, but really bringing them together and using the social justice standards as part of our can-do statements in the classroom. Cecile is passionate about including these topics early on in the language curriculum and talks us through what that looks like, particularly at the novice level. So be sure to listen to these two episodes together because they really complement each other and actually are talking about some of the same topics, but often with a different lens, and you can hear different places where you can find some materials and resources that you might be able to use in your curriculum as you are trying to put these ideas of diversity, equity, inclusion, or social justice, or diversifying your language curriculum. You'll hear lots of topics from both Ben and Cecile on that. In the show notes, you'll see the links to episode 27 with Ben Tinsley and episode 33 with Cécile Lenné so that you can listen to them right there. You do not have to go hunting them down. I put them right in the show notes for you. There are also links to get in touch with me if you'd like to work together, either in person in your school or remotely during the upcoming school year. Look for more Summer Headspace episodes over the next few weeks, and then new podcast episodes will begin on August 22nd. I will talk to you soon. Bye for now. You've been listening to the World Language Classroom podcast. Be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening so you don't miss a single episode. Let's continue the conversation on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at WL Classroom. You can also see over 250 blog posts about language teaching at, you guessed it, WLClassroom.com.